Hey guys, it's Shub here. So I'm sure if you guys are watching the video, you've probably already heard the news. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Oklahoma and Texas are expressing interest in joining the SEC. And this obviously brings up a handful of questions that I'll talk about here in this video. I figured that I'd share my personal opinion on the matter here and make a video out of it. So the first question would be, what does it mean for Oklahoma and Texas and the SEC? What does it mean for the rest of the Big 12? What does it mean for college football in general and the future of the sport? And then at the end of the video, I'll bring up some interesting realignment ideas, a couple of them that I thought of myself just for fun. I know everyone today is a conference commissioner and everyone kind of likes throwing out their own realignment ideas, so I figured I'd just share my own. But the truth of the matter is that you can't really predict what's going to happen. Who knows how this is all going to play out in the long run? But just for fun, I'll kind of entertain those ideas. Before I get into the video, really quick, I just want to shout out the Illinois Dynasty. If you enjoy NCAA football, the video game, you enjoy playing it, and you want a realistic and authentic dynasty rebuild experience, I really encourage you to check out my Illinois Fighting Illini Dynasty. That's here on this channel. I'll leave a link to the playlist in the description, and you can also just find the playlist on this channel. I think you guys would really appreciate that if you enjoy football gaming or college football gaming in general. But anyhow, so what does this mean for Oklahoma and Texas specifically, and then for the SEC? I think everyone pretty much understands the whole concept behind this. Oklahoma and Texas are doing this as a money grab. The SEC is the best conference in college football. You can't deny that. It generates the most revenue of any conference in college football, and it's the most attractive conference. It's the most attractive club to be in. And Oklahoma and Texas are two of the biggest brands in college football, and they're doing what's in their own best interest, and this will be a great move for Oklahoma and Texas long term. They're just simply adopting to the new times with NIL that's recently been put into effect, and the SEC's new TV deals. This is a money grab, and it's the right move if you're Oklahoma and Texas. It really is. And I think Oklahoma specifically, I think Oklahoma will fit in just right in with the SEC. I think Oklahoma, they have the talent, they have the recruiting, they have the head coach, they have the prestige of the program. They will fit just right in the SEC. I don't think Oklahoma will skip much of a beat at all. I think Oklahoma will still be winning 10, 11, 12 games a year. I think they'll be competing for SEC championships. Oklahoma is a great addition to the SEC. Texas, on the other hand, I think we all know in the back of our minds that Texas has the upside to be great again. Texas has the upside to become a powerhouse, and they can do it pretty quickly. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. Now, I understand you can say both of these at the same time. On one hand, it's pretty pathetic how much Texas has underachieved, and they've been mediocre in a pretty average to below average Power 5 conference over the last 10 years. On the other hand, you can also say that on the flip of a switch, if Texas hires the right coach, maybe they have the right coach now in Sark, we'll see. If they hire a good coach, they can easily be a powerhouse in any conference. People making jokes and stuff on Twitter, I see a lot of saying that Texas is signing up to lose 6 or 7 games and finish 5th or 7th in their conference, or division rather, going to the SEC, making fun of Texas. I mean, yes, at first, maybe in the first year or two, I think that'll be the case, but like I said, Texas is one great coaching hire away from being an elite powerhouse again. I don't care if they're in the SEC, I don't care if they're in the Big 12, or I don't care if they're in the Pac-12. Just look at Texas A&M. Texas A&M, 10 years ago when they left the Big 12 for the SEC, everyone was saying, oh, they're just signing up to lose in the SEC. What are you doing? Well, Texas A&M left because they wanted to establish their own identity. They wanted to separate themselves from Texas. They wanted more revenue sharing that you get in the SEC. And they obviously had the program upside to be good in the SEC. And look where they are now. They made the right coaching hire. They got Jimbo Fisher. And Texas A&M is now one of the better programs in all of college football. That can easily be Texas. Easily be Texas. Texas can do it quicker and faster than Texas A&M did it. The same people who are making fun of Texas, saying that they're going to lose in the SEC, are the same ones that probably said that about Texas A&M when they left. Texas A&M had a recent stretch of being mediocre in the Big 12 before they left for the SEC. Secondly, as far as the SEC as a whole, what this means for the conference, I mean, man, this is going to make the SEC must-watch television. You're going to have a monopoly on over half, at least of half of the biggest brands and blue blood programs in all of college football. It'll make the SEC must-watch television. And I don't know if you guys saw, SEC Network put out a pods idea of separating the SEC into four-team divisions, or pods is what they call it. I think it's a great idea, and I'll show you the graphic right here. I really like this idea a lot, and then the way that you play the other teams, you play 2 games out of each of the other pods every year so that you end up hosting a team from the other 3 pods at least once every 4 seasons. I think that's a great idea. The only difference, or the only tweak I would make to this is I think you got to put Texas A&M in with Texas and Oklahoma. That may be a stacked pod, but I think you have to bring back Texas and Texas A&M play each other every year. I think you have to do it. I mean, that is just a great rivalry that we've been missing. So I think that's a great idea, and I really like this. And I think that other conferences, if they add 16 teams or they have 16 teams total, should definitely adopt this model. I think it works specifically for football. Anyways, so now talking about the Big 12. The Big 12, to be frank, the rest of the Big 12 is kind of screwed by this. They really are. I think, my personal opinion on what's going to happen, I think that the rest of the Big 12 will probably disband. I think that the rest of the schools will probably seek alternative options than just kind of sticking it out in the Big 12 and potentially adding new teams, which certainly is an option. But, I mean, put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in the shoes of the athletic director or the university president at West Virginia or TCU or Texas Tech or Kansas State. Are you really going to stick it out in this, what's remaining of the Big 12, and maybe add a Houston or a Memphis, an SMU, Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, Boise State? I've heard those schools as good additions to the Big 12 as potential additions. And don't get me wrong, some of those schools I think would be very solid additions to the Big 12. But here's the thing. None of those schools are top-tier blue blood programs. Those schools are mid-tier programs at best. Adding those schools to what's remaining of the Big 12 would definitely keep the Big 12 hovering just above G5 status. I think you could still call a Big 12 a Power 5, but it would be probably the worst Power 5 moving forward. And it would, like I said, the Big 12 would be treading water as considering themselves as a good Power 5 conference. I think just long term, that's just not where you want to be, and you don't want to be stuck in that situation. When the Big 12 lost Texas A&M, Nebraska, and Colorado and Missouri 10 years ago, they already kind of were setting themselves up for a slow and steady decline, even with Oklahoma and Texas still in the conference. And this would certainly accelerate that decline. I mean, let's just not kid ourselves. Adding those schools would just be a slow and painful pursuit of mediocrity for the Big 12. And I don't think if you're one of those schools that's in it now, you don't want to be a part of that slow and steady decline. So that's why I think personally, if you're an Oklahoma State or a Baylor, you are calling other conferences and expressing interest in joining them. I just think that's the route you have to go. As far as what does this mean for the rest of college football, I think it'll be great for the SEC. I think the SEC will be must-watch television every Saturday. It'll be fantastic within the SEC. I think if you're a fan of an SEC school, or if you're in the exclusive club, so to speak, it's great. It'll be fantastic. As far as for the health of the rest of the sport, I can't really say the same. I think this really is bad for the health of the rest of college football. You know, even the status quo as it was just before this, the SEC was already kind of considered a powerhouse in college football. And now if you add Oklahoma and Texas, it's becoming a Death Star. The SEC is going to run college football. I mean, as I mentioned, they're going to have over half of the biggest blue blood programs and biggest, most valuable brands in all of college football. And I think their commissioner, Greg Sankey, is going to be more powerful than the head of the NCAA. I mean, the SEC is really going to dominate and run college football, and I think that's just not good it's just not good for the health of the rest of the sport nationally. I understand why this is happening, but the writing was on the wall, but that's just kind of my opinion on it, and I think that's what this does. Now, if you're the Big Ten or the Pac-12 or the ACC, you probably are going to have to try to match the SEC or do something to sort of match or get at least 50 cents on the dollar for what the SEC is doing in terms of making moves and adding to their conferences.